I'm a firm believer in paying your dues. Perfect. I'm an extremely full-on believer of that fact that it's okay to learn your craft, it's okay to take your time. At least it worked for me.
I'm Eric Wilson of the New York Times. In the last few years, the fashion spotlight has shifted from established designers with decade-long careers to a stampede of tenderfeet. Young designers are starting their labels in their early 20s, right out of college, like Princess Schooler, Zach Posen, and Alexander Wang.
Well, I think we should do snaps, Tina, don't you think?
But the latest designer to be crowned as the next big thing, Prabal Gurung, has a different story to tell. He was raised in Nepal, far from the glamour of the catwalks, but came to New York to follow his dream of being a designer.
Growing up in Nepal, fashion designing was not a career choice that was very conventional. So it's taken 10 years for people to kind of understand it is a legitimate career.
Gold.
It is beyond.
Mr. Gurung is 30 years old. He decided to work for an established house for several years before sinking his life savings into making a fashion collection.
Maybe just the way I was brought up, or maybe it's a cultural thing, I kind of wanted to be really well prepared in terms of my craft, in terms of the business aspect of it.
He graduated from Parsons. He went to work for Donna Karan, then Cynthia Rowley, and then Bill Blass, where he was the design director for 5 years. Few of his peers had any interest in working for an old house like Blass, which had been spiraling downward for years.
I was very skeptical about the whole idea. It was like, how do I say? It was a great American house, but in terms of relevance, it wasn't there. But so I went with the preconceived notion of what it was, and that's where I learned, I think, all the craft of how to really make good clothes.
Late in 2008, as the country officially entered a recession, the house of Bill Blass was shuttered. Despite the economy, Mr. Gurung decided it was time to strike out on his own.
At that time, I didn't know, there was no concept of presentation, because it was just like shows and everything. What I wanted to do was I want to show it to a few buyers and editors, create a buzz, through my work, rather than hype. I'd heard there were a lot of people who were skeptical about the presentation initially, no, I don't know, it came from Blass, that kind of preconceived notion. But a lot of my friends who were editors and everyone started texting the minute they got there and they saw the lineup. They started texting people. That's when all the editor-in-chiefs or their bosses started to come.
A look from his very first presentation landed on the cover of Women's Wear Daily, a major achievement during the heat of Fashion Week.
That completely changed my life. All the years and years of hard work and things that I'd done, and there were moments of doubts, everything that in that particular moment I felt like I did something right. My mom was like, congratulations, that's great, very proud of you. What's next? What's next? You got to enjoy it, but this is not it. It's today, and she always says to me, Prabal, today you're getting all this great attention, tomorrow it could be not. You don't like it? I love it.
Now in his third season, Mr. Gurung is preparing his first formal runway show with a collection that asserts just who he is as a designer.
I personally am the kind of designer, I don't like talking about my inspiration because it's very nuanced. It's not literal. I live right across Hells Angels, and I've always been fascinated by the group of people. It's very male-dominated, at least what I see. I've never seen a woman, around there. And so I started creating this idea of this girl, who is part of that. The collection is timeless, modern, relevant, and it's this girl or a woman, a thinking man's sex symbol, confident woman who's able to penetrate different kinds of fields, different kinds of worlds.
I think his clothes are perfect for work, for the red carpet, for evenings out, and he really understands what's wearable and yet has a really strong point of view at the same time.
If you look at all these clothes, from front it looks a certain way, from back there's another story. So if you look at that white coat, it is, the black is kind of creeping in front. So that was the initial point of, I never wanted to tell anyone. I was I'm doing a collection based on Hells Angels, or whatever, especially from me. But then I kept on going back to that because that set the tone for the entire collection.
I feel relieved, excited, really, really grateful. Like, really, seriously, it's my first drum mission. I couldn't have asked for anything better. Like, everyone showed up, and I'm really relieved. I'm so happy. I can't even tell you. Like, it's a gamut of emotions. Yeah.
It's so exciting and inspiring to see new faces and new designers on the runway.
The seam line is curved. It kind of gives an illusion of like a skinnier leg. And what girl doesn't love a skinny leg? I'm really proud of it because that whole circular curved line is very precise. And I see seams are not like perfect or like not aligned and everything. I have sleepless nights about those.
You know, today so many designers want to come on and be a major name and come right out of school, and there's a lot to be said to working in design studios that really understand what they're doing and how to design and drape and design a perfect dress.
But at the end of the day, no matter how I come up with ideas and themes and inspiration, at the end of the day, what I have to keep in mind is somebody has to wear this. I'm designing clothes, not costumes.
While the fashion world is still getting to know the real Prabal Gurung, it seems he already has a pretty good idea of himself, and that's largely because of his experience.
I came from relatively okay family, privileged family, where I would get out of the car and my driver would be there, and you see it, you think you're in this AC car, but then you see miles and miles long of, people waiting in this dirty bucket for drinking water, waiting in line for that. And to me, when I look, I am living my dream. I left my family to live my dream, and I am doing it. And so all the little problems or issues or anything that I have, it goes away because I always think I'm so lucky, privileged, it could have been me. One of them could have been me.